Coming up on the Health Feast.
You can just tell people what to do. I could just tell at the end of the day, I could tell all my patients, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing. That is traditionally what doctors do. They just tell you, this is what you need to do. End of story. And that is actually removing autonomy, because the person is not deciding this is what I want to do. Someone's telling me. And that's where there's a disconnect. If the person doesn't want to do what you're telling them to do, if it's not willingly what they want to do, then there's not going to be motivation, because it's not fulfilling that fundamental human need. I think of autonomy and competence as very related to each other, because the more competence you have, the more sort of in control you are of what you're doing. When you don't have much knowledge or skills, you're often relying on other people. You know, if you don't know how to cook, then you're like, well, I'm just eating whatever so-and-so makes, because I don't know how to cook. So I don't have control over that. Competence gives you that autonomy, but both are separate and kind of two of the basic needs. And then I'll go back to the first one, which is relatedness, this need to experience a sense of belonging and connection with other people. I think of it like just feeling cared for, you know, how fundamental that feels. And not just feeling cared for, but caring for others. There's a fundamental need we have to be able to provide that for others too. Hi, Po.
Good morning, Rak. How's it going?
How you doing?
Good.
It's raining a lot. I'm sure there too.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty bad actually, but it's good. We need the rain, right? We got a drought. So hopefully this will help alleviate the drought.
That's right. I know we're not allowed to complain about rain. I just said it's raining. I didn't complain. I just said it's raining. My kids keep asking me, are we out of the drought yet? I'm like, I think we're close, but it won't last for long. I wanted to share something that Melinda, who we had on our last episode, Melinda texted me this morning. She said, hi, I saw the episode. Thank you and Po for creating this space. I was so proud of myself that I was able to reflect from an external view how far I have come. Gratefulness is all I can say.
Thank you, Melinda, if you're listening today, for being with us and allowing us to further the space, you know, of conversations. Man, you were very inspirational, I have to say.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, you can go back to episode 8 of the Health Feast. Listen to Melinda Joyner. Incredible conversation that the three of us had. Incredible story that she shared.
Wow, I can't believe we're on number 8. That was
that was 8. This is number 9.
Let's get an Air 5 right here. Let's get an Air 5. Air 5 and a little pound. Boom.
There you go.
Boom.
Number 9. Okay. What we were going to talk about? I feel like we talk about motivation a lot, but there's another way to think about motivation, which I've been sort of becoming obsessed with recently, which is self-determination theory. I told you a little bit about it before, Po, but have you heard of that? You haven't heard of that before.
I've never heard of it. Let's dive into this, because we were talking about, you know, things that I'm experiencing right now in this journey, and you kind of brought it up about this self-determination.
Well, why did I bring it up? So you were talking about wanting to get kind of regular movement going.
Yeah. And when I look at my past, I feel like I had the best results when I was part of like a group, you know, like whether that's being part of a team, going to the gym and kind of befriending a community of people that were also going to the gym. And then that's when you mentioned something about self-determination.
Well, you said community, and I thought about self-determination. So self-determination theory is sort of this framework for thinking about motivation, human motivation. And it basically says that there are certain needs, certain basic human needs that we all have, psychological needs that support our ability to make change and our motivation to make change. And those are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Okay? Autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And relatedness is actually what you were getting at with community, right? Relatedness is this idea that you need to feel connected and that there is this fundamental need to have belongingness to others.
Yeah. So let's go into each one of those.
Let's go into each of those.
Yeah. So like, so I do like, one thing that one of the best experiences I've ever had, like in a workout setting, was obviously being part of teams, but more recently, was when I used to do spin. I mean, that was like the energy in those rooms. First off, I never really, I used to chuckle when people talk about going to spin class until I actually took a class. And that was like the hardest class I ever taken. Like that workout was so insane that I couldn't believe it. Like I thought for the most part that, at that point, at that time in my life, I lost like, I don't know, anywhere like maybe 60 pounds. And I thought I was in decent shape, because I was doing all these different boot camp style workouts, those are intervals, right? And then I get on that bike, and my friend, her name was Amy, she was the instructor, and she was like, all right, let's go. And I get on there, and man, like not even 5 minutes on the bike. And I was just like, what is this? Cause you got to turn up the what is that? I forgot the name of it.
Resistance.
The resistance. Thank you. Oh my gosh. It was probably the hardest thing ever, but I just kept showing up, and then people started expecting. And the one thing that I thought was really interesting was that my friend, the instructor, she put me and all the big guys up front. So it was like this level of like, oh man, like, so now you couldn't like take like you could take a break, but every time she'd see you try to dog out on the session, she'd call you out. So
she put you in front.
Yes. It was great though. Like it was one of those things, like, because then what ended up happening is like, it was almost like this, like, so everybody knew it was hard in the class, right? Even the people that have been going to her classes for years, like seeing someone that was struggling it helped them. So there was like, it made them push, because if I'm pushing, then they're pushing. Then when you look in the mirror, because there's mirrors in there, you're looking at everybody behind you, and you're like, man, so you couldn't really like take a break and like stop and kind of like, so, but what I was saying was that I became friends with all the people that started coming to those classes, like 5 a.m. Like I was like, right. Or that's 6 a.m., so it almost was like, then you started feeling like you're part of this group of people that are cycling at 5 a.m. in the morning, and it kind of creates like a camaraderie amongst the people, so, but that was like one of the best experiences, because I think from there, that's when I started running, because I had been doing it for so long that, my heart I could never run to get my heart that high when it's like, when it's beating, cause I'd wear like a little polar watch, and I just knew that then from there, I just started running, and I could run for a long time. That's when I started doing like 3 miles. And I was like, man, it was only because of that. The cycling, I think, is what got my conditioning so well that and prior to that, I never was like a long distance runner. Like I hated running. And then after I started doing spin, I was like, man, this is crazy. So anyways, that's like one of the best experiences that I could, when it comes to relating. Like I feel like now I'm in my 40s now, but it's hard to find that. That's what I want to kind of recreate, right? Is that type of situation where I'm it's accountability that's attached to that too. Cause now, people rely on you to be there, and I'm relying on others to be there. So then you look forward to these classes, where people are all on the same mission, just trying to get healthier.
Yeah, I that totally resonates with me too. I never worked out or exercised consistently in my life until when I was in medical school. I worked out for a couple years, and that was because my roommate and a couple other classmates would go lift weights, and I just started joining them, and I didn't know what I was doing. And actually I kind of hurt myself because I injured my rotator cuff. I would get all this pain because I wasn't stretching. I wasn't, I love those guys, but they didn't have like they weren't trainers. Let's just say that.
Gotcha.
So then after that, I stopped exercising again. I started exercising right before my wedding for like 3-4 months because I wanted to look good in the pictures. And then I hated that. Like I was running and I hated it.
Yeah, running, man.
And then when I ultimately changed my diet, I was eating more of a whole food plant-based diet. I would say about a year into that, I felt really good. And I started asking myself, like, why don't you exercise? Why don't you move regularly? And it was around that time that I started just exploring what could I do. And prior to that, I had been a member of like a large big box gym. And I used to get it from Costco, like a 3-year membership or something,
Oh
because
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ends up being nothing, like
Yeah.
$10 a month. But that also means nothing in my head. Like I would go I would go around my birthday and around New Year's for like a week or two. I'd be like, I'm going. And the point is, all those times I was doing all that stuff by myself, and it didn't. There was no community. Like I wouldn't have a community at the big box gym. I didn't have a community when I was forcing myself to run. I had a community in med school. That's why I kept going. That's why I worked out for, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And then I found a gym near my house. I had found this gym several years earlier, but when I read about it, I was like, that's crazy. And it was like a small box gym where they did like a different daily workout every day. And it's centered around weightlifting and big lifts. Like one day a week you do squats, one day a week you do deadlifts, and then they do all these other things around it. And I was like, what do I have to lose? And so I show up, and I remember the first time I worked out there, like the warm up itself, like would you just do the stretching and mobility? I was like shaking.
Yeah.
Just
I've been
even
there.
that
Yeah.
that was so hard for me. I was like huffing and puffing and shaking. And you know what though? I just kept going, and I started making friends there. And I remember thinking like, this is really hard and I'm enjoying this. And I became friends with the trainers there who run the gym, and at that gym, like, and that experience is the reason why I started to love working out. I never would have gotten to the point where I, like you said, like get the conditioning, get over the hump. That's when you started running. When you
Yes.
were like, oh, I can do this and I enjoy this.
Yes.
Actually, I get a high from
Exactly.
this.
Yes. Yes.
But I, like you, would never have gotten there if I didn't
Mm.
have a group of people that I was like holding accountability with and showing up and
It
hanging
was
out with.
fun, and you're laughing, you're making jokes, like that.
That's right.
That's the community part of it. That's just
That's
like,
it.
wow. But yeah, but you mentioned another one. You said,
Oh yeah.
you said
So that's
relative.
so that's no, so that's relatedness, right? So
Relatedness,
that's
yes.
relatedness. And then another one is autonomy. Okay. So
So
what
let's
does
talk
that
about
mean to
that.
you?
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah. What does that mean when I say that to you, Po?
I think of doing something on your own. I think of someone that's that's self motivated. Like they're motivated,
Okay.
and then like knowing that like when you're running or when you're doing something that it's gonna benefit you in the long run. Like
Yeah,
there's some type of reward that you're gonna get out of
that's
it,
right.
whether that's the scale going down, the clothes. That's what I think of.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that probably is related to autonomy. It's this feeling that you have choice.
Mm.
First of all, it's a feeling that you have choice over your behavior. So I'll give you an example. Like if at your job you're told like you have to, this
Yeah,
is you do this,
yeah.
this, and this, or you're asked, what project are you interested in developing? So that both are necessary in most jobs, right? Some degree of, but the feeling of autonomy is when you have choice and that you're willingly in control of what you're doing. Okay. And why is that motivating? Well, that again speaks to self-determination theory. This is a fundamental human need to feel that we are in control when we're being told what to do, how to do it. This comes out a lot this is how I learned about this through like the stuff I've been reading and speakers I've been seeing who are health coaches and talk about health coaching, how you effectively coach people. And you don't just tell, and I do a lot of coaching as a doctor, right? As a
Hmm.
lifestyle medicine physician. And you can just tell people what to do. I could just tell at the end of the day, I could tell all my patients, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing. That is traditionally what doctors do. They just tell you this is what you need to do. End of story. And that is actually removing autonomy, because the person is not deciding this is what I want to do. Someone's telling me. And that's where there's a disconnect. If the person doesn't want to do what you're telling them to do, if it's not willingly what they want to do, then there's not going to be motivation, because it's not fulfilling that fundamental human need.
Wow, yeah. I completely get that. I do remember there's a certain part of my own health journey where like I was doing every type of workout that I wanted to, that I felt the best. Like running became my new favorite thing to do because of that runner's high. And even though I would have the aches and the knee pain and, from just running all the time, but I just felt so good afterwards.
You wanted to do it.
That I wanted to do it. So it became a choice, and it wasn't like a chore, there's that I remember it being more of like, man, I want to go get my run in before I go to work, because I feel so much better after I do it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's awesome. Well, you just saying it makes me want to go move right now. I haven't done anything today, but
and, there was something about too that you would like work through your own issues, and I don't know if that's even like whatever was on my mind during that time, whatever it was, whatever stress. There was something about running that just made. I used to call it like an active meditation. You know what I mean? Like I'm in this space of like telling myself to keep going, even though I wanted to stop. Or, once I always figure that first mile was the toughest. And then the second one was like, for me, it became like I was in my pace. And then I no longer cared about like anything else. And I feel like that's what you're describing, is that autonomy, that where you're feeling like you're sort of like ahead of it. Like you're in control of that exercise that you're doing at the time.
So I just want to reflect on that thing you said, which is like a moving meditation. And so when we meditate, when you get to that sort of meditative state, there's this area of the brain, or there's a series of structures in the brain that anatomically now scientists call the default mode network. The default mode network, why do they call it that? So it's interesting, when somebody's just sitting still and not doing anything, this is the area of the brain that lights up. And it's not that they're not doing anything, they're not moving, but they're having all sorts of thoughts. And the default mode network are the areas of the brain that are involved in thinking about ourself and ruminating, like having thoughts about what might happen and worrying about it and those types of things. Okay. So those things are more active when we're not moving, when we're still. As you move, you start to, and exercise actually been shown, movement, like intentional movement, has been shown to decrease the activity in that network. So you get to a point when you're running and that thing is completely shut down.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the same thing that happens in a kind of deep meditative state. And not right away, not when you just first start meditating, but you can look at MRI, functional MRI studies that look at which parts of the brain are activated, and they look in advanced meditators, and that's what's happening. Those areas of the brain are just sort of, interestingly, Po, this is also where they see areas of the brain being sort of shut down when people take psychedelics. Like when people take psilocybin mushrooms, high dose psilocybin mushrooms,
wow,
LSD.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's some relatedness, but anyway, that's an aside. But it is a moving meditation. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you. I read years ago. I read a book called Flow, and they were talking about how that's like athletes, people that master certain like martial arts. That it talks about when people get into the flow, and it's. I don't know if that's what we're talking about, if it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's very similar. I cannot say his name. He's a psychologist. He actually died, I think, last year. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Okay, and Gene Nakamura developed this idea of flow state under the right conditions. That is what's happening. My understanding is the default mode network is basically turning off. But in the flow state, they kind of describe it in more in terms of when you're immersed in an activity. So when you're immersed in certain work, you might be writing,
drawing, or
drawing,
art. Yeah.
yeah, conversation. I feel like we're in the, well, maybe. I feel like we're in the flow state when we talk to each other.
Yeah.
That often happens. That's why we felt this calling to share these conversations, because we could feel that there was something very special about the conversation. But anyway, going back to autonomy, right? So autonomy is this idea that you're in control, and certainly you're expressing some of the benefits you got from movement. Like you got this sort of meditative state, you got this positive hormones being released,
the dopamine, all that,
the dopamine, cannabinoids, same thing that like THC, we have receptors for those things because we endogenously produce.
Right, where they describe it as a high. That's why they describe it as a runner's high, like this euphoric, like afterward you just feel like you're on this, you just feel good,
You just feel good.
Really hard to describe, but for those who have experienced it, you know what it is. You know what that
what it is.
Yeah.
And this is, Po, what after you start exercising or moving consistently for a while, you start to feel those positive effects. Then it becomes less about, oh, I should go.
Right.
It's good for me. I should do it for my health. I should do it for whatever. To like, I need to do this. Like, I don't feel good when I don't do it. You always feel worse when you don't do it. And Michelle Seeger, who I want to invite on the show, she's a exercise. She studies motivation and exercise and motivation and behavior change at the University of Michigan. And she the way she conceptualizes it is that people who don't exercise actually more likely frame it like that, as a chore,
right,
as something they should do. And the people who do exercise consistently, they do it because of all the positive things it brings for them, and that is not a chore for them, that's a gift. And so that's what I work to do with my patients too, is I work to help them frame movement as a gift instead of a chore. Someone like you, I get you to connect with how much you felt it was a gift. Like you felt that, that. So it's just getting back to that, is getting over that hump.
Yes. And I want to make sure we note this, that we want to talk about how that also applies to food. Because we're talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
How food, the same way that you're framing how you view movement, and also how when you eat certain foods, how that connects with that feeling as well. Which I think the same things apply, don't you think? Like
I think the same things apply.
The same rules apply to your diet.
You can look at any behavior as a punishment or a chore, or you could look at it as an opportunity to feel good. And then you just have to figure out like how to make that happen. It's going to be different. Right. It's sustainable. Yeah. And it's going to be different. Okay. So that's autonomy. Competence is the other one.
Let's talk about that.
Fundamental human need. Yeah. Competence. Well, what comes to mind when I say competence?
Know-how. Do I know how to do something?
That's right.
Am I capable? Do I have the ability to do it? I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's true. I mean, so if let's say you're going to that spin class, and then the first time you came, it was really hard and you were out of breath or whatever, and you came back because there's community and there's accountability. And each time you went back, you got a little better.
Right.
You got a little better. You knew kind of how you were going to handle things. You got a little stronger. So mastery is part of it, right? Is being more effective in your activity. And how many times has that you've experienced that? People experience that when they play sports, when they learn an instrument, like anything really, like when you're cooking, when you're playing a new video game, when you're learning anything, it comes up. So it's mastery, but then it's also like being effective.
Yeah.
So you realize that, if I improve this skill, I'll be more effective at whatever.
Or like cooking. Like I can't say I'm the best cook, but when you cook something for the first time and it tastes good, and sometimes it might need a little this, a little that. So as you continue to make something, it just gets better and better as you cook. I mean, being able
Yeah.
to add or take away whatever ingredient is for the
Well,
meal.
and it's not just, yeah, for cooking's a great example. So I would say like competence in cooking is not just knowing how to cook or how to follow a recipe. It then is like, how do I do this quickly? How
Mm,
do I make this possible in my life? Like, because I have to be able to do this on a regular basis, and the food should taste good. And so you learn efficiency skills, and you learn meal prepping, and you learn how to batch cook, and you learn that's the type of skills. But all of those things tie into your competence, and they're all related to each other in some ways. But I think of autonomy and competence as very related to each other, because the more competence you have, the more sort of in control you are of what you're doing. When you don't have much knowledge or skills, you're often relying on other people to help you get things done. If you don't know how to cook, then you're like, well, I'm just eating whatever
right.
so and so makes, because I don't know how to cook. So I don't have control over
Right.
that. I don't have control over that.
Yeah.
Right. So it gives you that competence, gives you that autonomy. But both are separate and kind of two of the basic needs. And then I'll go back to the first one, which is relatedness, this need to experience a sense of belonging and connection with other people. I think of it like just feeling cared for, how fundamental that feels, and not just feeling cared for, but caring for others. There's a fundamental need we have to be able to provide that for others too.
Totally, man. And that's where this theory comes from. That's
That's where this theory comes from, is that's what underlies our motivations. It's like when you're designing or thinking about what you might do. If I'm trying to do more movement, if I'm trying to ask yourself all those things, how can I maximize all those things? Because we don't often think about community when we think about our movement and exercise or our cooking or
mm,
anything, but community is so huge with food, right? I mean, that's why we get together, we sit down at a meal, we go out to eat with people, we share so many special occasions, special moments in people's lives with food. And so then you're changing your food and you're like, oh, well, I can't do this anymore. I can't eat with that person anymore. And I can't, it's a big disconnect. It's and it clashes then with your
whatever.
objective.
Yeah, whatever your goal is. I can say that I've experienced some of that transitioning over to plant based. I don't know if we want to cover that a little bit. I mean, because I do feel like when I first learned about going plant based, I was in kind of like a controlled environment, but it was coming home where it was the most. It's still a challenge, because now, whereas in a controlled environment where you're learning how to eat different, everybody supports it. And that's that going back to that, there was accountability involved,
Yeah.
everybody, there was relatedness. And then once you come home, it's like everybody's on a completely different eating regimen. So, I mean, now I'm trying to design something that's going to work. It's constantly
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to make it better, or make it to where it's productive. Like I'm able to, and it's not like it's foreign. Like I've been in those places where I'm able to work out. I'm able to do all and eat better and all that. And it's just this like, you know, ebbs and flows, I would say.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Ebbs and flows. So yeah, is it that you don't have control over the food? Like
yeah,
other people are making the meals and then
yes,
they're not exactly the meals you
that
would
I
want to
can
eat?
eat. And then I give in and I just eat it, because
Yeah.
it's like,
Of course.
I mean, so that's part of the
Especially in
challenge.
like the midst of like stress and everything else going on in your life,
Yeah.
you're just going to eat Yeah,
whatever's
I get that.
available, and it just, I find that that's probably one of the toughest things is just being prepared and,
Mm,
and then, talking to my family, like, hey, let's try to all do this. And then it's just never, it's
mm,
never consistent. It's like, I'll do it. And then it's like, that's why when I went to these groups, right, when I was going to some of these support groups, I thought they were great because now I'm in a room where everybody's trying to get healthy. So I'm right
yeah.
now 24, well, I shouldn't say 20, maybe 16 hours of the day. I'm with my family and they haven't transitioned over to it. I think my daughter did like last year. She did for a while, but anyways,
Yeah.
so when I go to like these groups where people are struggling, it's like, okay, I feel like I'm in a better place. But when I'm not there, it's like, man, it's like going up against the wave.
Yeah.
So
Do you do any of the cooking, Poe?
lately, no,
Okay.
no. And we talked about this because you say you take over, you do the cooking in your house.
Well, no. I
Oh,
do some of it,
okay.
but I do all the grocery shopping. From a bird's eye view, I realized when I started eating this way, I realized that I needed more control over my food environment. And I love my wife so much, and
Yeah.
she still sometimes goes to the grocery store and she brings the most bizarre. She brought some chocolate cake back the
Okay.
other
So I'm
day.
not alone in
She
this
brought
because that's
she
how my
brought
wife is.
she brought like this olive bread, which was made with white flour, and it had olives and some olive focaccia, and I'm like, it looks delicious, and of course I ate some.
Yeah.
um and I said, can you stop going to the, like, why did you go? She's like, I needed to get something. She needed to get something. And then I saw this, and this, and I picked it up. And I was like, okay, note to self, I need to just check in with her more regularly, what she needs.
Yeah.
so that, so I take over the grocery shopping. Now I go to the store every now and then, and I do some of the shopping online. And I'm trying to sort of automate that process so that the healthy stuff is coming in regularly. I know the healthy stuff that everyone likes. I know, like, my kids, they love, chocolate chip granola bars, but they also like Lara bars. And those are just 2 or 3 ingredients. So I buy them a lot of Lara bars. And so I've just worked to really, and now am I perfect? No. I mean,
Yeah.
and is our food environment perfect? No. I mean, there's other ways in which I've gotten around that. Yesterday, my wife said, "Oh, just so you know, I'm making regular chocolate chip," because nowadays she makes a lot of things like plant-based, like whole food plant-based, like cookies
That's
and
awesome, man.
desserts and things.
Yeah.
It's amazing because she's embraced it, and she also a couple years ago developed a dairy allergy, so kind of motivated her. But I said, there's ways to make this stuff. There's people publishing recipes, and you come out really good. You can use like some almond flour or put some nut butter in there and sweeten it with dates, and you get like cookies and cakes and things like that. And it's not like low calorie necessarily, but it's way healthier than like
The
regular
stuff that you
stuff
would
that's
buy.
made with
Right.
dairy and eggs. And she still, though, sometimes like Christmas time, they made like, sugar cookies with butter or whatever.
Right. Right.
And yesterday she said, we're making like non-plant-based chocolate chip cookies. Like that was and then I was like, okay, I can't control them completely. I said, I went on a run with speaking of, I scheduled it with a friend. So I went on
Yeah.
a run because I wouldn't have gone yesterday. It was like half raining. And so I said, well, can you just make sure they're like put away
Yeah.
and I don't see them? And so what she made them for the kids and also for some neighbors, and she packaged them. And when I came home, the ones for our kids were put in a container and they were put in the pantry. And the ones for the neighbors were put in Ziploc bags and they were on the counter, and they left shortly thereafter to go deliver them. And so I didn't have to worry about these freshly baked cookies right in front of my face. And there's that level of respect now where I've told my wife I have a problem around foods like that. I can't sometimes resist. And when I eat those things, I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about making that choice. So I would rather be in an environment where I don't have to make that choice constantly. Because for me, sometimes it doesn't feel like a choice. And she respect. It's taken a while of me saying this. And initially she was like, I don't get it. She doesn't have this problem. She was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
You just don't have it. You just don't have it. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way for me. It does. So, and there's a spectrum, right? I have maybe some more control than others, but I recognize my own limitations. And so controlling the food environment, if you bring it into your house, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to eat it. There's a 0% likelihood you'll eat it if it's
You
not
don't
in
have
your
it.
house.
Right. Exactly.
You don't have it.
Yeah.
So that's why I took over the grocery shopping.
I think I take that back. I do shop. Like when I order stuff online, or I usually get, my shake stuff. But what happens is, though, that when I do order the stuff, nobody else wants to eat it. So it's like, so it becomes like this thing where it's like half what what the rest of the family wants to eat and half what I need to eat, and
focus on what you all like. That's also good. Like, is it certain fruits that everybody likes?
Yeah,
that's make
a
sure
win.
you always have those things on hand all the time.
Yeah. Like I think that's not, for us, it's like, it's the issue of buying too much fruit and then nobody eats it. And it's weird how kids are, man. Like sometimes they go through these phases where they want to eat certain thing, then you buy that, and then they don't want to eat those things anymore. And it's like, but I think my food environment is definitely something that I need to just kind of continue to work on, because it is very difficult. And that's the other thing too, because I do cook. I was just thinking, actually, I've cooked stuff in the past.
Yeah.
Nobody eats it. Nobody wants to eat it. Nobody wants to eat anything that doesn't have any type of meat product in it. So,
how feasible is it, Poe, for you to cook, like, for your, not every meal, but like to maybe cook a bunch of
like vegetables,
couple things on the week? I don't know. Like,
it's possible.
Basically prep.
Yeah, I think, because when I go for my work weeks, I usually will try to do make beans and some rice, and then add some some vegetables to it, maybe some broccoli, but that's only for, I find that I'm the best when I go to work. I'm the best about my eating when I'm at work. When I'm at home, it's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. I mean, I end up giving in. It's like it's not a situation, like my willpower is not there when I'm with my family. And even like I'll start off in the morning when I drop them off from school. Okay, boom, I'll do really good. As soon as everybody gets home, and later in the day, it's like whatever my wife makes, I'm just like, all right, but I'll definitely, I'm taking some mental notes on what you're saying about some of the things that you do, like the way that you say you discuss it with your wife. I can't say, well, I should say I've talked to my wife plenty of times about food. Like, we've been married for 16 years, and she's been on this journey with me. So I think we spoke about it before. It becomes a fatigue. She gets fatigued, and I don't blame her, man. For someone who's like myself, who's been, challenged by this weight issue for so long, and then sometimes you're just like, man, do I just accept that this is the journey? And you know what? Being how old I am now, it is the journey, because it's never going to end. Like, as long as I just keep doing it,
Yeah.
I don't know why we got off to this. We started talking.
We started talking about, I don't know, changing your diet, and then kind of the barriers to changing your diet, and we talked about food environment.
Yeah.
And I asked, and you said you don't really cook anymore, and then I pointed out, well, it's not just about cooking; it's about the food you bring into the home.
Yes.
I don't cook all our meals. I cook 2 meals a week. We have this like schedule. I'm very lucky because my in-laws live not too far from us, and they bring us food. Usually that's enough for 2 meals a week, 2 dinners a week.
That's awesome.
And they're South Indian, and their food is all vegetarian. It's basically all vegan. I mean, and then my mother-in-law she used to use more oil, and I think because of me, she uses a lot less. So it's basically, I mean, I feel spoiled in that sense. I'm very lucky to have that. And then my wife will make dinner a couple times a week, and then we usually order out once a week. Or we order out for the kids, and then I just eat some leftovers.
That is something we did change. That's something that my wife and I changed financial reasons was we can't be eating out, multiple times a
Yeah,
day.
it's
Even when I'm not here, like if I'm at work, they'll be going and buying something. And that's partly, my wife's tired. She got 4 kids. When I'm not home, she's by herself essentially, So I try to walk around that topic lightly because if she's tired, she's tired, And so, but she agreed. She was like, all right, we'll eat out one dinner. And so usually I think they do that on Fridays. But
I mean, the other thing I do is some of the food is just like the stuff that I know I have really hard time with, like candy and things like that. It's kept up in a cupboard or like in the pantry in the back. And so like we pull it out when the kids are going to have it. And then at night I put a lock on that pantry because I clean up the kitchen and I lock it up. And then I put the key in the fridge, and then I have another thing that goes around the doors of the fridge that has a combo. Everybody in the house knows the combination except me. So I can't get the key. Once I close up the fridge, I can't get the key for the pantry, and I can't open the fridge for the rest of the night. And you know how relieving that is for me? It feels like when I do it, it's such a relief because in the past I would come random times. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure because I haven't had a formal diagnosis, but there's a condition called nighttime eating syndrome where I'm like half asleep and I come downstairs and I eat.
Wow,
I've done that for years.
You've shared that with me, and I can't believe, like, really, like, are you like sleepwalking? Is that what that is?
No, I'm like awake enough that I'm like somewhat conscious. Like I'm like it's our house, so I know exactly where to go. Like I don't really have to think. And yeah, I'm not completely asleep. No, I'm like aware of what I'm doing, but I just wake up and like without even thinking, it's become a habit. My body gets out of bed and walks downstairs. But it's so interesting when the fridge and everything is locked, I might still go down. Like I'll go down once, sometimes twice, but all I can do is drink water. And usually I'll go down once and then I won't go down again now.
Wow.
I mean, it's changed my life. And it used to disrupt my sleep every night. So now I get much better rest. And it was and my family thought, and my wife thought, this is ridiculous. You're putting a lock on I changed the knob and there's a lock and now I lock up the fridge.
Yeah, that's I mean, if you know it works for you, then hey, more power to you. But I don't know. My wife would probably like divorce me if I locked everything.
No, I'm not telling you to do that. No, exactly. I came to that solution because I recognized what my pressure point was, and then what I came up with a solution. And listen, initially I was putting the key behind my daughter's on her bed. She has a shelf behind her head, and I was putting it there. And I said, no, in the morning you can unlock everything. And she got really upset. She's like, I don't want that responsibility. And so I figured out how to do this thing with the combination and put it in the fridge so that anyone could open the fridge and get the key out. It was trial and error. It didn't at first, like they were all saying like, why are you doing this? And in the morning they didn't have the key and they were really upset at me. And my wife was saying like, can we just stop this? And I was committed to making it work because I knew that ultimately it was going to liberate me. Like I was going to have control over the food environment in the evening in a way that I didn't have before. And so it's a process of just asking yourself what's challenging for me, and then how can I work with the family and do a brainstorming session I do a lot of brainstorming sessions with the kids too.
That's
I'd be like,
awesome.
well, what else could we do? Because Daddy has this issue where I don't really have control over my eating at night, and it doesn't make me feel good, and I feel bad in the morning, and I don't sleep well. And so then I got all their ideas. They were like, maybe you could keep healthy snacks in your room. And I was like, that's not really the point, but it's not a bad idea. But anyway.
Well, see. That's the thing. That's the good thing is because you said after you locked the fridge and you found your system of how to, you know, sort of control your food environment, you felt liberated, and
I felt liberated.
that's the great thing. That's what it's about. I think is that I'm still in the process of getting to that liberation stage because
They say there's that expression, right? That discipline will
yeah.
set you free. And I realized that I don't have self-discipline in this case. Like, I
Mm.
just don't. I tried for so long to have self-discipline. I put like notes up for myself on the
Mm.
pantry and the fridge. Like, you don't want to go back to bed. Like, I tried these things. And then I was like, okay, well, how do I give myself discipline? And I do have the self-discipline to lock everything up when I am cleaning up the kitchen. In fact, my wife says you do, because now I consistently clean up the kitchen every night. I put all the food away, and that I didn't do that before, but it's the added benefit of giving me that freedom. It's interesting how locks give me freedom, but they do.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like if how that would apply to me because it was a solution that you thought of, or at least your
Yeah.
brainstorming sessions. You came
Yeah.
up with this
I
solution.
thought of it. I was like, I just need to stop having access to this stuff.
Yeah, which is
Because I said in a perfect world, if I lived alone, I would have complete control over the food I
what's
bring
inside
into
the
the house.
house. Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, and that's why I find it interesting that see my I do way better at work than I do at home.
Yeah.
At work I
You
don't
don't
have
have all those
access.
choices. You
No,
don't have
I have
access.
whatever I
Yeah.
brought. I have whatever I brought to work, and that's it.
And you make that decision usually in the morning when your willpower is high. So you bring good, healthy food to work.
Yes,
It's just when you come back or
and
when you're not at work and
there's
the
access to
willpower is,
everything. Yes,
yeah, and willpower is kind of like a
low.
battery too.
Yep,
So it's depleted, and then you're sort of like you default to your
exactly,
habits.
exactly.
You default to your habits. Okay, well, certainly something we can explore more in the future. I think. Okay, no, Poe, this was a great conversation as always. Thank you. Um, really appreciate you, and I appreciate the opportunity to kind of learn through your experience and my experience and share that with everyone else.
Oh man, I appreciate you, man. Like this is something that we both talked about. We always talk about it, but we talked about it. It was an idea a year ago, and now it's actually happening. We're on episode
That's
9. I
right.
mean, that's pretty cool. And it's still evolving. That's the other thing that's great about this space, man, is that we're still, trying to, figure out how to, bring more content in different ways to bring the
That's right.
content, So
Yeah,
yeah.
gonna have more guests on because prefer talking to other people. I'm just kidding. No, both of us. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I think this is like we do that. Why do we do this? We do this because we're learning from it, and it's fun. It's something we do. It's enjoyable. It has to be because I mean, last I checked, no one's paying us.
No, I think because I think we enjoy helping people. That's what I think at the
Yeah,
end of the day, it's sharing our experiences and hopefully, someone who out there who's might be struggling. I think that's how I feel about it, because I know
yeah,
I'm not the only one. And it goes back to that support, that going to those
yeah.
support groups and creating a support kind of environment.
Creating a community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something Poe. You and I should think about. We should think about more. Like, how do we how do we start to support and create that community for people?
And
I don't know. Anyway,
and healthy, you know, like,
and healthy.
like the goal is to be healthier. You know, that this term is used a lot, but a better version, you know, or if you that's what this is for, is if is to improve yourself, right? Like to
Yeah,
constantly be trying to improve yourself, whether that's mental
constantly
health,
trying
you know, just your overall well being, you know, is what I
yeah
think this should be.
grow as a person,
Yeah,
whether it be your grow spiritually, grow mentally, grow physically, all
yeah,
these things, mind, body, and soul.
yeah,
That's
because
it.
we can learn a lot from each other. You know, we can. You have lots of wisdom that I don't have. You know, and
Well, the
that,
same,
you know,
same, Poe,
and
because you have a lot of life experience, and nobody has the experience you have.
right,
And when you bring that and share that, I think it's it illuminates. Just like you said, other people, they realize they're not the only person struggling.
yeah. And it's like, you ever heard that term? You know, if you walked in my shoes, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
you don't know somebody until you've walked a day in their shoes. Well, let's just say
mm,
this is kind of like a space where, or part of what we can do is we can make it a space where you can actually learn from that person, like learn, like actually
yeah,
walk in that person's shoes and see what they're
yeah,
dealing with. And, you know, and I feel like that right there could help somebody in their daily life, you know? And
yeah.
it might not be something grand. It could be some one topic that we talked about, you know,
That's right.
that could literally say, can cause that person to be like, you know what, I'm going to try that.
Yeah,
Or they can reach out to their doctor. You know, I'm dealing with this, you know, and it could be fatherhood, you know, like being a father, what works for you and your kids, you know, or like you said, you know, with food, like there, you have a system in play for your food environment. And now today I'm like, man, I haven't talked to my wife about specifically what's going on with that, you know?
I think we'll call it a conversation there. What do you think, Poe?
Yeah. Until next
Okay.
time. Until next time.
Until next time on the Health Feast. All right, take care,
All right,
everyone. Oh, and
everybody.
please submit a question. If you have any questions for Poe and me, any topics you'd like us to discuss, you can go to our website, thehealthfeast.com. There's a place right there where you can submit anything you'd like to, and sign up for our email list, which we haven't started emailing out yet, but we will soon. We will soon. So, you know,
Or
there's a
comment
good number of
sections.
people.
The comment section.
There,
If there's a
there's
comment
a good
section.
number. Yeah. And then on YouTube, where we have our channel at the Health Feast, you can certainly comment on our videos, and then Instagram at the Health Feast. And you can find us there as well. And yeah, appreciate everyone listening. And appreciate you, Poe. Boom.
Boom.